Have you ever looked around and realized that some of the people you thought would be there forever slowly drifted away? Maybe it was after your retirement. Maybe it happened after a health scare. Or maybe, quietly and without warning, the phone just stopped ringing, the visits stopped happening, and the people you used to call close started feeling distant. You're not alone if that's ever happened to you. As we get older, we start to notice things that we didn't see clearly before. One of the biggest? Friendship. Or rather, what we once believed friendship was, often looks very different in our later years. In our younger days, we may have been surrounded by coworkers, neighbors, parents of our children's friends, folks from church, or the gym. We called them friends, and maybe they were. Or maybe they were just people passing through, people who were around because we served a role in their lives. And when that role changed, so did their presence. This isn't meant to make you bitter, not at all. But it is meant to help you open your eyes and see clearly. Because the truth is, the older we get, the more valuable our time becomes, and the more important it is to protect our peace, our energy, and our hearts. Now don't get me wrong. Some friendships are real and lasting. Some people will show up for you through thick and thin. But those people, they're rare. And when life puts pressure on your world, that's when their true colors begin to show. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to find company when things are going well? You're feeling good, your home is lively, you're hosting dinners or volunteering or watching the grandkids. People are calling, texting, inviting. But the moment you slow down, the moment life hits you sideways, with grief, with illness, with loss, or just exhaustion, suddenly, it gets very quiet. That's the hard part of getting older. You see the illusion for what it is, and as painful as that can be, it's also a gift, because with clarity comes wisdom. One of the wisest things you can do at this stage of life is to stop chasing people who were never meant to stay. And instead, start investing in the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one you have with yourself. You don't need to explain your choices to everyone. You don't need to overshare in hopes of being understood. You don't need to hold on to relationships that feel one-sided or draining just because of history. When you're young, you build a community. When you're older, you protect your peace. You don't have the time or energy to be around people who make you feel less than. You don't have to pretend everything's okay just to keep someone else comfortable. And you certainly don't need to wait for a crisis to see who's really in your corner. If they vanish when you need them most, they were never real to begin with. And here's another hard truth. Support often shows up when you no longer need it. Isn't that strange? You might cry out during your loneliest nights hoping someone, anyone, will notice. But no one comes. No one checks in. No one offers a hand. Then, months later, when you've picked yourself up, when you've healed, when you've learned how to smile again, suddenly they reappear. Not to help, but to say, "I'm so proud of you," as if they were there all along. And it's not because people are bad. It's because most people are focused on themselves. They don't know what to say when you're in pain. They don't know how to handle sadness that can't be fixed with a quick comment or a prayer emoji, so they stay away. That's why learning to stand alone isn't just smart, it's necessary. Standing alone doesn't mean being lonely. It means being self-sufficient. It means you don't rely on the presence or approval of others to define your worth. It means you can sit in your favorite chair, sip your tea, and be at peace with your own thoughts. It means you can go for a walk without needing someone to talk to. It means your joy isn't rented, it's owned. And once you stop needing constant validation, once you stop depending on others for your emotional balance, something powerful happens. People start respecting you more. Why? Because self-reliance is magnetic. When you don't need anything from anyone, you become someone others want to be around. Not because you're demanding their attention, but because your energy feels calm, secure, and strong. That kind of strength doesn't come from noise. It comes from quiet, from solitude. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's clarity. It's the ability to sit with yourself and still feel whole. When you learn to enjoy your own company, you're no longer desperate for shallow conversations or conditional friendships. You stop clinging to relationships just because you fear being alone. Instead, you start choosing people who truly nourish your spirit. You see, real friendship isn't proven during your best moments. It's proven during your worst. It's not about who shows up at your birthday party, but who notices when you haven't been yourself lately. Who calls just to check in, not to gossip, not to ask for anything, but just to say, "I've been thinking about you." And if those people are few and far between, that's okay. You don't need a crowd to feel loved. One genuine soul who truly sees you, is worth more than 100 who only show up when the spotlight's on. So what does this mean for you now? It means you don't have to keep giving pieces of yourself away to everyone. You don't have to share every detail of your life with people who haven't earned your trust. And you certainly don't have to keep waiting for others to treat you the way you hope they would. Let go of the illusion. See things for what they are, not what you wish they were. And start learning the joy, the freedom, and the power of standing on your own 2 feet, even if your steps are slower than they used to be. Because there's strength in solitude. There's wisdom in silence. And there's peace in knowing that the only person you truly need to rely on is the one staring back at you in the mirror. You know, there's something powerful that happens when you stop hoping people will show up and start showing up for yourself. Because the longer we live, the more we realize this world doesn't operate on sentiment, it runs on usefulness. Most relationships in life, especially in later years, reveal themselves to be transactional. That doesn't mean everyone is cruel or selfish, but many people, even the ones closest to us, tend to drift toward what serves them, emotionally, socially, or practically. And when you're no longer the one hosting, organizing, driving, giving, or cheering, you may start to notice how quickly the room empties. It's subtle at first. Maybe the phone calls get shorter. Maybe you start hearing, "I've just been so busy," a little more often. Maybe you notice that your health concerns or your thoughts don't seem to matter as much anymore. But then it clicks. Some of the people around you were there for the season when you were useful, not for the journey of your life. It's a tough realization, but here's the thing, it sets you free. Because once you accept that truth, you stop wasting time chasing people who never really saw your worth beyond what you could give them. And you start turning inward, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You begin to understand that trust, real, meaningful trust, isn't built on words. It's built on time, on actions, on consistency. You see, people can say all the right things. They can smile wide, call you family, promise to be there. But real trust is revealed when things go wrong. It's revealed when you have nothing to offer, when you're going through something difficult, when your energy is low and your smile has faded. That's when you learn who protects your name when you're not in the room, who keeps your secrets when it's inconvenient, who still calls just to hear your voice, even when you've got nothing exciting to share. These are the people you hold close, and they're rare, very rare. That's why in this stage of life, it's not just about protecting your body, or your finances, or your schedule. It's about protecting your inner self, your emotional and spiritual well-being. Because once that gets drained, it's hard to refill. You've likely spent your whole life caring for others, raising kids, helping friends, holding up family during hard times. You've been the one others leaned on. But now, it's time to protect your own spirit. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not everyone has earned the right to hear your deepest fears, your proudest hopes, your private thoughts. Those things are sacred, and they should only be shared with people who prove, over time, that they'll treat them with care. And if no one fits that description right now, that's okay. It's not a reason to feel lonely. In fact, it's a reason to feel powerful. Because you've stepped into one of the greatest strengths a person can have, emotional independence. You can sit in your living room with no one else around and still feel full. You can walk through the grocery store or sip coffee by the window or take a quiet drive and not feel empty, not feel lost. Because you're grounded in who you are and you're not waiting on someone else to complete you. And when you reach that point, something else shifts. You stop needing others to validate your decisions. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop apologizing for putting your peace first. You just move, with quiet confidence, through the life you've earned. Because the truth is, not everyone will understand your journey. And they don't need to. They might not get why you pulled back from certain people, why you stopped saying yes to every request, why you don't want to be part of certain conversations, events, or drama anymore. But you know why. Because you've learned that peace is more precious than popularity, that wisdom is more valuable than noise, that being centered is more important than being surrounded. And once you truly understand that, you begin to tap into the quiet strength of solitude. Solitude isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. It's where your thoughts settle and your heart heals. It's where you remember who you are, without the distractions of who others think you should be. It's where you build the kind of life that doesn't fall apart when someone else walks away, because it was never built around them to begin with. And in that quiet space, something beautiful happens. You start becoming whole. You begin to enjoy your own presence. You take joy in small things. Your morning routine, the way the sunlight hits the floor, the smell of your favorite tea, the feeling of a freshly made bed. These little things become your companions, your anchors. And when people do show up, the right ones, the real ones, you welcome them from a place of peace, not desperation. You connect, not because you're lonely, but because you're already full and simply want to share that fullness with someone else. That's a different kind of power. A quiet, grounded, lasting power. So if you're watching this and feeling like your circle has gotten smaller, don't worry. You haven't lost. You've simply refined. You're not alone. You're aligned. You're not being forgotten. You're being reminded of what really matters. Let others chase popularity. Let others cling to shallow company. You build something deeper, something wiser, something more peaceful. Because in the end, it's not about how many people are around you. It's about how deeply you know yourself, how clearly you hear your own voice, and how safely you guard the peace you've spent a lifetime building. By now, you may be realizing something deep in your spirit, that life, especially in your later years, has a way of teaching lessons not with words, but with silence. And one of the most important lessons of all? That trust is not a feeling, it's a process. When we're younger, it's easy to mistake comfort for trust. We feel safe around someone, they say the right things, they smile at us, they seem loyal, and because we want connection, we often let them in too quickly. But over time we learn, trust is not proven in good times. It's proven in difficult ones. It's not about how someone treats you when everything's easy, it's about how they respond when your world shakes. When you're not the cheerful, helpful, giving version of yourself they're used to. When you need help, not because you're weak, but because you're human. Real trust shows itself when things get inconvenient. Does that friend protect what you told them in private? Do they check on you even when you're quiet? Do they stand with you even when you're no longer useful to them? Those questions reveal more than 1,000 nice words ever could. And if the answer is no, if they vanish when you're no longer serving their comfort, then hear me clearly. You did not lose a friend. You uncovered the truth. So don't feel guilty for pulling back. Don't feel bad for setting boundaries. Don't keep offering your heart to people who've only ever held it with loose fingers. It's not bitterness, it's wisdom. Because trust is a sacred thing. And as you grow older, your energy is too precious to spend on people who haven't earned it. You've come too far to waste time trying to convince people of your worth. You've walked through too many storms to keep inviting fair-weather friends into your life. Instead, you begin focusing on something far more important, protecting your inner self. Your peace, your calm, your ability to rest at night, knowing you're living in truth. And protecting your inner self means saying no more often, not to be harsh, but to be healthy. It means choosing peace over pressure, clarity over confusion, stillness over stress. Because when you protect your inner self, you stop pouring into cups that only drain you. You stop explaining your decisions to people who were never meant to understand your path. And you stop shrinking your spirit just to fit in with people who are more comfortable with a smaller version of you. That's the quiet revolution that happens in solitude. Now let's talk about solitude again, not as something to fear, but as something to value. In your younger years, maybe you avoided being alone. Maybe you filled your schedule, surrounded yourself with noise, always stayed busy. But in this chapter of life, solitude becomes your ally. Because in solitude, the distractions fade, the pretending stops. You finally get to hear your own thoughts, honor your own needs, and rest in your own truth. And the more time you spend in that space, the stronger you become. You begin to see that you don't need a crowd to feel complete. You don't need validation to feel valuable. You don't need applause to keep moving forward. You realize that your life is yours, that your happiness, your peace, your meaning, they're not attached to anyone else's behavior. They're rooted inside you. And once you find that center, people can come and go, seasons can change, but you stay steady. You stop fearing silence. You stop fearing loss. You stop fearing being misunderstood, because your joy no longer depends on being seen or understood or approved. It's grounded in self-respect, in clarity, and in purpose. And do you know what happens when you live like that? You start attracting people who are healthy too. People who aren't looking to take, but to grow. People who aren't intimidated by your strength, but inspired by it. People who don't disappear when things get quiet, but lean in closer, gently, without pressure. That's the reward of walking through the hard seasons with grace. You become someone whose presence calms a room, not because you're loud, but because you're grounded. You become someone who lifts others, not by preaching, but by simply living in alignment with your values. You become someone who no longer begs to be included, because you've already created your own table. So let the fair weather friends drift away. Let the ones who only show up in celebration be just that, spectators, not soulmates. And let yourself grow deeper, stronger, and wiser in the company of one, you. Because the longer you live, the more you realize there's only one person who walks with you every single day, through every high and low, through every silent season and storm. And that person is the one staring back at you in the mirror. Honor them, trust them, love them. You've made it through so much. You're still here, and you're still growing. Not in spite of your age, but because of it. So to everyone watching this who's ever felt disappointed by people, who's ever wondered where the support went, who's ever had to sit with silence and swallow hurt, just know this. You're not broken, you're becoming. And there's something deeply powerful, beautifully sacred about the strength that only solitude can teach you. You don't need the whole world to see you. You just need to see yourself clearly. And when you do, when you trust yourself, protect yourself, and believe in yourself, nothing can shake you. Not abandonment, not betrayal, not loneliness. Because you've learned to stand. You've learned to walk. And most of all, you've learned to rise. So if this message resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about your journey, your experiences, your strength. And if you found value in this video, give it a like and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life for more wisdom, encouragement, and honest conversations about aging with power, dignity, and peace. Here's to living your truth